Hi, and welcome to the very first vlog of How to Be a Queen, the ABCs of Royalty. I'm your host, Ellie B. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to start with today is obviously the letter A, and if you've been following us on social media, you'll know that that stands for attitude. We've got some amazing women today who used their attitude, whether it be good, bad, strong, determined. They used their attitudes to rule their kingdoms, whatever the size, in the best possible way. So get excited, and here we go. Okay, our first fabulous female that we're looking at today was literally a queen. Some would call her the Queen E, the one and only. If you've read the blog, you already know we're talking about Queen Elizabeth I of England. So Queen Elizabeth was born September 7th, 1533, to Henry VIII, this fella, and Anne Boleyn. Now, just a side note, there's a little family drama here, right? So Henry VIII was originally married to Catherine of Aragon. She's a princess of Spain. However, he got that marriage annulled so that he could marry Anne Boleyn, which of course, pissed off the Catholics. So now there's a new religion, quote unquote, in England, which is just the Anglican Church. So Protestantism, non-Catholics, right? Well, he has, with Anne Boleyn, Elizabeth I, right? Well, Anne Boleyn doesn't produce an heir for him, so he beheads her, which makes Elizabeth I completely illegitimate. So talk about some serious family drama. So her brother, her half-brother, Edward, reigned and ignored her, right? Just pretended Elizabeth didn't exist, swept her under the rug. Then her half-sister, Mary, also known as Bloody Mary, she'll come up later, I'm sure, who is Catherine of Aragon's daughter, if you want to follow that crazy family tree. She locks her in a tower. What can you do? Family drama. I'm sure some of you guys get locked in a tower when your siblings get mad at you or feel threatened. So after she's finally let out of the tower in 1558, she is crowned Queen of England. So one of her first acts, like the first thing she goes to do, she says, you know what, I'm going to create the Church of England, and I'm going to be the supreme ruler, right? And this made it very religiously peaceful in England, so her dad, broke up with the Catholic Church. Her brother wanted to kind of go back to being Catholic, tried to be tolerant. Bloody Mary, her sister, who locked her in a tower, she was not having it. She was Catholic all the way. Her mom was Catholic. Spain is Catholic. So she is like Catholic or die, literally. Killed people if they weren't Catholic. So Elizabeth comes in and says, everybody chill, okay? We're not going to freak out. If you're Catholic, you're Catholic. If you're, Church of England, you're Church of England. If you're not, it's fine. Do your thing. Just don't bother me, right? So she had this little motto where it was I hear but keep silent. So she is just do what you got to do. I'm the supreme leader of the Church of England, which is our national religion, but everybody else, just do what you got to do. Which is big, right? Because England's been in this weird religious turmoil, and they're going to keep being in a weird religious turmoil for quite some time, but for a while she's in power, she's keeping it peaceful, right? Her attitude is very just keep the peace, everybody chill, I'm in charge. As long as I'm in charge, everybody chill. So then she decided, okay, listen, there's a lot happening, we're kind of small, we're an island, easily accessible via water, right? No one's going to charge across the land, but they can surely attack us by the sea. So she's trying to figure out these politics and the dynamics while not having a king or anybody other than her council to advise her. So she's, having been locked in a tower, she's a little late to the party, as they say. So she's trying to balance all these foreign powers, and at one point, the Spanish Armada, Spain's screw you, England, we're coming. And by the grace of God, as she'd say, the Spanish Armada is defeated before it even touches English shores. And it's still to this day considered one of the biggest English maritime successes. It's hailed, right, throughout England, this woman, she's amazing, what a queen. And then the French try to go up to Scotland, and she ousted them there. So she's really balancing her foreign powers, and she's kind of crushing it in that domain, right? So then we got to bring it back close, and everyone in her unit, right, her council, her people are yo, Queen Mary, you're the bomb, but you still need to get married and have kids because you need a man in your life. To which she responds, no, I don't. Watch this, right? Hold my crown. I'm going to go do something crazy. So she is doing all this stuff. She's known as being hot-tempered. She's known as being cunning and intelligent. And she never marries, right? She showed that she didn't need a man, right? She didn't need to be a mom to be a successful person. Some people do. She didn't. She said, I can rule my country without any of this other stuff, right? So she explored the new world. England is now landing in other places. We're exploring, the East Indies, the West Indies. We're going everywhere. So we've defeated France. We've defeated Spain. We're now exploring new countries. We have religious peace. And she, with her feisty attitude towards ruling her kingdom, her literal kingdom, right? It allotted her a successful 44 years as the queen, right? That's a long time in the 1550s up to, the 16s or whatever. So I guess not actually the 16s if you do the math. So she's 44 years. She finally dies in 1603. Oh, so 1603, yeah. But she produced, and provided the stability for her kingdom by being such an institution, right? She's such an institution that they have an era of, British history named after her, right? The Elizabethan era, part of the Renaissance. So it's amazing once you start thinking about how much of an institution she was. I mean, our current queen is named after her. So Queen Elizabeth I, her energy, her attitude, her determination to just do what needs to get done, regardless of anyone else, regardless of a husband or a council, whatever, she could do it on her own and she knew it. So she used that feisty, fiery attitude of hers to just, conquer Spain, get them out of there, conquer France, and, cause a little tension with Scotland, but that's fine. She's the Queen of England. What are you going to do about it? So it's her energy that brought this stability to England and, a more sense of a national identity. You can really get behind someone that is such an institution in your place, So they now have this sense of English pride because of Queen Elizabeth. So her attitude really played a huge role in how she ruled her kingdom and how she handled, different things. You'll see a picture of her and she's always looking very straight face, although I think everybody at that time was. But it's really interesting to see, you just think the Renaissance, frilly dresses, kings and all this stuff, but Queen Elizabeth really was the beginning of England being a full-blown empire, right? So she really set the sails for, wind in the sails for the empire to start to begin to expand and explode and, conquer and colonize half the world. So just remember, no matter the size of your kingdom, as the queen of it, your attitude plays a big role in, how you handle what's going on around you and how you handle internal stuff and external stuff. And I think Queen Elizabeth is the perfect person, woman, fantastic person to start with when it comes to attitude and ruling a kingdom. She could probably be, all the letters, but we're going to stick with her for attitude because she knew, good attitude, bad attitude, feisty, whatever. She knew that it was up to her to show her kingdom that she didn't need anybody but herself with her, feisty, fiery, cunning, intelligent attitude. So go Queen Elizabeth for our first woman. Okay, so we just heard about Queen Elizabeth I, and she was feisty and fiery and cunning, and her attitude is what led her to rule this amazing, huge kingdom. But who said just having a simple, positive attitude couldn't change things? Well, this next woman, if you've read the blog, you know where I'm going. This next woman just had a constant determination to be positive and to fulfill her dream, right? So this is Amalia Eriksson, our second woman for today. She was born in 1824 in Sweden. How cool, sticking to Europe for a little bit. And she was the daughter of a farrier. And she was known for her positive attitude and determination, right? If people talked about her, they'd be like, oh yeah, Amalia, she's positive, she's happy, she's got life goals in the 1820s. So unfortunately, she was tested a bunch. Her positive attitude, it's amazing she stayed positive. So let's just start at the beginning, right? So unfortunately, at 10, just 10, her entire family died of cholera. Every single one of them. So now it's just her. So she ends up becoming a domestic servant, which I think is different than being just a slave, right? So I think she's just a maid almost. If you've watched Downton Abbey, I'm thinking more of like Anna, just a helper kind of thing. But then they end up moving away from her hometown. So now she's, with no family, and now she's moved away from everything she knows with this family, and she's a servant. And so then she luckily gets married to this amazing guy. He's like a businessman in this new city. You know, she gets pregnant. It's twins. We're so excited. And she's lived this perfect life, happily ever after, and that's her positive attitude. Except for wrong, right? So it obviously doesn't go that way. It would be way too easy if she was just happy all the time. So she got married and she did get pregnant. However, you know, not even before her second trimester, her husband, her new husband, kicks the bucket. So now she's lost her entire family and her new husband, and she's pregnant. So the stress actually causes her to lose one of her twins. So now she only has one child, a child that's passed away, and then a passed away husband, and then her whole family. So this woman is just constantly being trialed, right? But she keeps her positive attitude, and then her daughter gets sick, right? Her only child gets sick, and she's this horrible cough. So she goes, as the rumor says, as the legend goes, Amalia goes to the pharmacy and she gets like some peppermint oil and makes this like soft candy to give to her daughter to soothe her throat. And her daughter ends up getting better. So, you know, that's kept in her mind. She's like, wow, so that becomes a little family tradition of hers, is that they have this little medicine. Well, then at 32, she decides, you know what? I'm going to apply for a permit to sell little tiny pastries, right? So it takes a whole year, so like 1859, she's finally getting permission granted to sell these little pastries because she's a 30-something-year-old woman with a child. She's widowed. Just let her do what she got to do. It can't possibly be that impactful. So she decides to sell her little red and white striped peppermint candies. It's actually what we now know as a peppermint. So the little candies you get at the dentist, at the grocery store, from your grandmother after she, you know, pinches your cheeks. Amalia is the one who came up with this recipe. So she got a little shop. She started selling. A lot of people started being like, this is the bomb, like peppermints, who wouldn't be? So much so to where the royalty was coming to this tiny little shop in this tiny little town to get Amalia's peppermints, right? So she decides, no one can know my secret. I have to take this to the grave. Well, obviously her daughter is like, well, Mom, I should keep running the store. It's doing so well. So Amalia only tells her recipe to her daughter. And so now her daughter's running the thing, and Amalia's just posted up in a beautiful little country home, living her best life. And finally, Amalia and her mom decide that the rest of the world deserves to know, you know, because Amalia's prospered and her family's prospered and the town's prospered, the rest of the world deserves to know this recipe. So they end up giving it to everyone. So now it's, you know, well known how she made the candies and why she made the candies and, you know, what gives them that fun color. And it was really fun to read about Amalia, though, because, you know, throughout all these horrible, tragic events happening in her life, she knew that she just had to keep going. You know, she persevered. She was determined to open her little shop, even though it took a whole year to get approved. And she just kept this positive attitude because she knew, even if she wasn't the Queen of England, you know, like Elizabeth was, that she could make a positive change in people's lives just by having a good old positive attitude. And so it's fun to see, you know, her, especially compared to Queen Elizabeth. Because Queen Elizabeth went through hardships, you know, as well, locked in a tower, dad killed mom, you know, all the family drama. And hers was a larger scale, you know, because of her, England has a whole era. But because of Amalia Eriksson, we have peppermints, right? Just like tiny little victories. We have this delicious little candy that makes our nose cold when you breathe in through it. And I think that that's really amazing and impactful to think about the fact that you don't have to be ruling like an actual country. You don't have to defeat the Spanish Armada in the English Channel. You can just make a peppermint. You know, you can just make someone smile or make a cough go away or give a little trinket. It doesn't have to be something crazy and momentous. So a positive attitude can change a lot of things and can definitely help you in ruling your kingdom. Okay, so this last woman on our first vlog ever is so cool. You're going to love her. Her name is Qin Shi, right? She was born in China in 1775 and was a prostitute before she was kidnapped by Cheng I, a pirate lord, renowned and revered in the China Sea. This woman, right, she used her attitude to become one of the best known and successful female captains on the seven seas. Check her out. So I already mentioned before that this woman, Qing Shi, was like the best pirate ever, right? So it's really cool. So she was actually kidnapped, like I said before, and nobody really knows why she ended up marrying this captain other than the fact that she was kidnapped by him, right? So it could have been business. She was known for being cunning, and some historians think that maybe, he knew that she was cunning and that she would be really good for like his business because she was a good negotiator. She kind of like ran the brothel that she was working in, or co-ran, and so they end up getting married, right? He's the commander of the entire Red Flag fleet, which is like huge. All the Chinese Navy was after the Red Flag fleet. But he marries her, right? Happy little marriage. She ends up negotiating for 50%, so half of the control of the entire fleet and share of the profits. So that's big money already, right? So he dies, actually. They've only been married for a couple years, but he dies, and she decides, you know what? She's going to do this. So she starts maneuvering her way to the top, right? She has this like ability to be feisty and cunning, and she's got this skill. So she decides, no, I'm going to be the leader here. So she ends up, making so many alliances and using her abilities and her strong, like feminine attitude to where she ends up by 1807 leading an 800 large ship and 1,000 small ship fleet, right? She is now the head honcho, the captain of the Red Flag fleet, right? So it's really interesting. There's actually 70,000 men and women on her payroll. So she actually had a payroll. It wasn't like they just pillaged and got whatever they want. She had a strict set of rules and conduct that kept all of her 70,000 crew in line. She had one of the largest crews of any pirate ever, right? Crazy. And she let women be pirates with her because why not? She was a woman. So these were some of her 4 rules, right? 1, gotta read them because they're intense. The first, anyone giving orders that is not her or someone that she appointed as a leader will be beheaded on the spot, right? What? On the spot. Okay. Number 2, stealing from any villagers or allies was also punishable by a beheading. All goods were to be distributed evenly. So if you pillaged anything, you brought it in and it was distributed amongst your crew. And all money that was brought in was, like physical money, right, was used to purchase things for upkeep on the ship. So either food, supplies, sails, whatever, medicine, whatever they needed. So treasures and that kind of stuff was divvied out. But money, physical money, was used in actual trading and bartering and selling things on land, right? So she had like this little business, not even little, she had this huge enterprise of stealing, but also like she made sure the villagers were taken care of and everything like that. So people started to get a little suspect. People are always suspect of powerful women. So when some of the other pirate lords, the smaller leaders in her fleet, start coming for her crown, her pirate cap, she ended up like solidifying her power through marrying her stepson, so the son of her previous husband. So no blood relation there, thank goodness. Which meant but she kept most of the power. So she was like, oh look, like he's the leader, but I still have like over 85% of all the power. She had all these rules that we just went over, right? Incredible. And she made even stricter rules about captives, in particular female captives. So this is where Qing Shi was like, you know what, I'm a woman, we're getting this stuff done right. So if any woman was captured on board, they were separated into 3 sections, right? Desirable and attractive, desirable but not attractive, and then completely unattractive. A little, kind of rude, but you had to do with what you got to do with. So the ones that were desirable and attractive, the men could marry, but they were required to be faithful, and if they weren't, beheading, right? The ones that were unattractive but desirable, still kind, they would ransom, right? So if they had personality traits or they, belonged to someone important, they would ransom them. And the unattractive ones, they would just return to wherever they got them from in the first place. If any of her crew was caught having consensual or non-consensual sex with a captive, right, out of wedlock, she would have them either beheaded, cannonballs tied around their feet and thrown into the water, or they'd be flogged and then dragged under the boat, right? So not a good day if you really disobey any of her rules. So she is like killing it on the waves. This giant Chinese naval fleet finally thinks they've got them, right? Like they've cornered all the red flag fleet, and here comes Qing Shi. She just comes barreling in. She takes charge of all these fleets, goes literally head first into this battle, this naval battle, and just wrecks the Chinese naval fleet. I mean, demolishes them, right? To the point where the leader, like the head honcho of the Navy, who was in charge of capturing her and destroying the red flag fleet, ends up killing himself because he's so mortified by how bad she beat them. Like, talk about a bad day, but a victory for Qing Shi. She also actually got to do something that not many pirates got to do. She retired. So she handed her cap, she passed down the crown to someone else to let them lead the fleet. She retired to a nice little village, I think in the northernish part of China, but near the water still, obviously. And she actually had a floating brothel on the water. She was an entrepreneur from the beginning. So this woman, good or bad attitude, right? This Canton pirate queen used her attitude to become the top dog in the China Sea and throughout maritime history, right? So you can't name another pirate at all, really, that's this successful. So I think it's really important that we note that it was her abilities, right? She was attractive, obviously, duh. But it's the fact that she could use her wit, and she had this attitude of I can get it done, you don't even need to worry. That she wasn't even challenged until 10 years into her reign. And only then was she fine, I'll marry my stepson so that there's a guy in charge. And really, she stayed in charge, and no one questioned her after that. She was consistently in charge and had this attitude of strength and power and just always on her toes. And so I think that that's something we can take away from Qing's story, is that just to be, if you go with confidence, then you're going to be confident, right? Whatever you do with confidence, you'll do it well, even if you're doing it wrong, if that makes sense, right? So if you just go with confidence, you're going to go in well. Okay, so we have learned so much, right? So much today. We've got Queen Elizabeth I, the Queen E. Then we've got sweet Amalia Erickson, who literally gave us peppermint candy because she had such a positive attitude. And then we have Qing Shi, who's thebomb.com and is rocking it in the pirate world. So we've got 3 different types of kingdoms, 3 different attitudes that still helped them, these women, be progressive and be important and rule the way they needed to rule, right? So it ended up working out for all 3. All 3 got to retire nicely and comfortably, right? Whether it's in a castle or in a nice mansion outside in Sweden or in a brothel in China, they all had this attitude that got them and drove them to be the best they could be and to succeed in any endeavor they tried. So all my queens out there, you can be feisty and, positive and cunning like Elizabeth and Amalia and Qing Shi, and you can do this. You can rule your kingdom. All you need is just to find your perfect attitude and jive with it. Remember that we are all queens, and I cannot wait to help you rule your kingdom next week with B. Who knows what it will be for? You'll have to tune in to find out. Have a great week. Rock that attitude.